my goal today is really to have this be a collaborative conversation. I think a lot of us are using AI tools at different degrees. Some people in the room might be new. Some have medium experience. I know Jack, I think you're an AI expert using AI for years. So there's a whole spectrum of people on this call. So I would love this to be not just my show and tell, but also how can we collectively contribute to how we're using these tools and how to get the most out of it. So that's the spirit behind this call. So this event really is focused specifically around Claude. We're going to be talking through mainly Claude Cowork and really how you can leverage it as a tool to help you in your business workflow. I would love to know, feel free to pop in the chat, how many of you guys are already using Claude to some degree, or if you're new to it. I would love to know. Eric came in. I know, Eric, you're using Claude. Eric's every day. Okay. Let's see, who else is using Claude? Natalie, you raised your hand. Okay. All right. Chad, yeah, you got ChatGPT. It's great, Laura. Have used a Claude or two. I bet you have. Great. Jack's Claude expert. Ed, you use ChatGPT, never use Claude. Okay. And Pat, how about you? You've been using Claude more lately, right? Versus ChatGPT.
Have been, yeah. I was just typing something up. Jack Titel, who is on this call as well, has been helping me, working with him 1 hour every week, and I do not see an end date on that. It has just been, excuse me, absolutely mind blowing the potential that Claude has with the work that I'm doing. So, yeah, it's fantastic.
Awesome. So we've got a good mixed group. So some of you are new to it and never used it. Some of you have used it a little bit. Some of you are every day, and then we've got a few experts on the call, which is awesome. So Paul, you said more chat, Gemini Perplexity, but you're familiar. Okay, awesome. So I'm not going to spend too much time. Well, I will spend some time around kind of what the differentiators are for chat, Cowork, and code for those of you that are new on it. And then for some of you guys that are real experienced, that'll be a bit review. But then we'll kind of dive into some best practice things to be relevant for everybody. So I've got two computers in here. I've got my a main computer here, and I also have I have a different laptop I've got Cowork installed on. So I've got two screen shares. I'll kind of be jumping between. But to start, I'm going to go ahead and share this screen. Pat, can you see my screen okay? We're good? Awesome. Cool. All right. Great, guys. Thank you. So really the goal today is talking through Claude Cowork and how you can especially use it to help you just with those admin tasks, really building automations in your business that you don't want to have to do yourself. So the goal today is to give you an introduction to Claude Cowork, give you a behind the scenes look at how it can function, some use cases. I've got a couple, I think maybe Pat does, maybe someone else in the call wants to jump in and share their experience as well. And then just talk through some of the safety guardrails, considerations. There's a lot of hype on YouTube about how amazing it is to automate your life, but I don't see as much conversation around just the safety considerations. So that's a piece I want to bring in since it's something to be thinking about since we're using this new technology. My background, once again, is I'm a Alaskan business bootstrap founder. I grew up commercial fishing for years, building businesses for 20 years. I built an 8-figure scale up with my dad and my uncle. That business eventually actually crashed, and I had to kind of work through a whole season of recovery after that, reclaiming my gifts. I'm now a full-time coach to different founders. I actually have multiple clients on the call today. Good to see you guys. And I've been doing a lot more. For me, Claude's actually newer for me. I've used a lot of ChatGPT. I more recently jumped in the Claude ecosystem, but I've built a lot of apps, custom apps, websites, tools using Lovable, which is powered by the Opus platform, Anthropic. So I'm not a coder. I'm not a super techie, but I'm just a business founder that's trying to use this in my own business and teach other people to do the same. So my contact info is here, and I'll make sure it's available at the end of this call. But so really the goal is, how do we make this translatable? So if we're not all tech experts on this call, how do we leverage this tech in a way that's relevant in our specific business and use case? And that's what really my objective is today, is thinking what's a practical use for most of us that are founders of some kind. And that's what we'll get into. So let's talk briefly about Claude and kind of what are the differences. For those of you that already have a Claude account, you're going to notice there's 3 sections of Claude. There's the chat, which is most similar to what you probably experienced in ChatGPT. It's a chat interface where you go back and forth. Cowork is what we're going to focus on today, where you have more agentic abilities and you can build in skills and have plugins and connect different apps. And then code is more of an advanced tool for if you're a developer working in a terminal, actually building, writing, reading code. So I feel like Chat's great for kind of thinking through, strategizing, working on different ideas. I know Eric, I know you've used Chat quite a bit with some RFP proposals, and other ideation, right, of content. Code, we're not going to focus on code today, is more advanced. You're actually going to be in there building custom solutions. But Cowork is a unique middle ground where it can really do a lot of work as a agentic employee, in a way to think about it, or an agentic assistant working alongside you, like a coworker. Hence the name. And it actually lives in your desktop. So you download it to your desktop. You give it different control to different files on your desktop. You can plug in different apps that you have. And you can basically let it do different kinds of work autonomously. You can schedule it where it can run, with your approval, or even on its own in some use cases. And so some of the things you can do with it, certainly not exhaustive, but you can have it clean up files on your computer. It can go through heavy documents. It can, go through, much like the chat can, it can interpret different documentation. It can actually go in and fill out Excel sheets for you. It can create design assets like PowerPoints and other tools. If you connect it to your inbox, it can go in there and summarize, review, draft emails for you, financial reports. I mean, you kind of get the idea. It can do a lot. And so I'm curious, I'm going to pause here. And before we go into some of the foundations of setting it up, what are some example use cases of how you guys have used Claude? Maybe if you can come off chat and just tell us, or feel free to pop it in the chat. Sound good?
Hey, Caleb, I'll jump in real quick. I just did something yesterday that was really cool. Fathom, which is my note taker, has now this connectivity with Claude, I think with ChatGPT as well. I don't know, maybe that happened a while ago, but I learned about it yesterday. Every time I do a coaching call, I'm using an AI note taker. And I actually, through projects, and you maybe get to projects in Claude, I create a project that automates the connection between my Fathom note taker after a call's over and what I instruct in the project for Claude to do with that information from it. So within 5 minutes of hanging up my coaching call, boom, I have this massive summary that has all been automated through the connection in Claude and the connection between Fathom, Note Taker, and Claude. Now I have something that I can send that client after the calls. I used to manually cut and paste from the Fathom Note Taker into ChatGPT or Claude and then have to give it instructions. Now, boom, automated. Just create
Amazing.
that. Took me 10 minutes yesterday to do that. Actually, I think I got an email from Fathom that said, "Hey, we now connect with ChatGPT and Claude." And so I just followed those instructions. So that's just a fresh thing that happened spontaneously yesterday.
That's amazing, Eric. And so that 10-minute setup is going to save you countless 10 minutes going forward, won't it? That
Hours.
admin hours of that copy and paste activity.
Yeah, really cool.
Yes,
It was really fun, easiest, and as you know, I'm not terribly techy. I'm learning as I go, but it was really pretty straightforward. I actually asked Claude how to set up the project, and this is what I wanted to do,
awesome.
and it gave me the instructions. I didn't have to just trial and error it. I know Jack's rolling his eyes a little bit because this is what he does every day, but to me, it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's a great tip, is ask Claude to teach you how to use it or to set up your connections, right? It knows all these documentations and pieces that we don't know. And so it can really do the heavy lifting of helping you build out what you want. That's amazing. Any
Right, that's
other?
good. Yeah, I just want to ask a
Yeah.
clarifying question, if that's okay, to Eric or to you,
Yes.
Caleb. So, in that example that you just mentioned, Eric, forgive my ignorance because I don't use Claude, but I'm intrigued, which is why I'm here. In that example that you used, what are you giving to the client that Fathom? I don't use Fathom right now either. So does Fathom just note take the entire call? Because I was under the impression that if you used Fathom Note Taker, it gave you kind of a summary. So what is Claude offering that you're not getting just with Fathom? Why do you need the extra step?
Oh, yeah, great question. So Fathom does both. It takes an entire transcript and it gives a summary. So you can grab either one of those, but so the note taker was great. It captured the meeting, both a video recording of the meeting and the transcript of the meeting. So what I would do historically is either send the student that link to that meeting so they could review our entire meeting. But what I love to do was I want to give specific type of feedback back to the students that I work with. And I taught in the past ChatGPT or Claude what I want. I create salient teaching points, key takeaway, action items, next steps, summaries, whatever. I kind of define how I want that. And so what I would historically do, to your question, I'd have the note taker within my meeting. After the meeting was over, all of a sudden it uploads into Fathom, right? It completes that thing. I'd take the transcript, copy it, carry that over into ChatGPT or Claude at the time, and say, hey, I just had this meeting. Here's the transcript, cut and paste, and then give me this feedback. I eventually had a shortcut to the feedback, of course, but it was manual. Click, click, copy, paste, all that. Now, because your Claude account or your ChatGPT, I guess it does both, connects directly to Fathom, I've given this instruction. So when I'm done, I say to Claude, hey, I just had a meeting with Dr. Hayes. Please capture a summary, and these are the instructions how I want it back, and it just automates it. And now it's one, and Jack, help me out here. I haven't gotten this far yet, but I can connect to my business Gmail account. I think I can actually even automate the sending of that email. That's the final step. I haven't done that yet. Now I'm copying and pasting it back into an email, but I think that would be the next step. So it's an integration, I think, Laura, to the manual process that I was doing. Note taking and then getting back to the student were two mutually exclusive type of activities that I've now merged into one. Does that help? Okay, good.
Awesome. That's a
And
great use case.
and Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, I can teach Claude now to take that and connect through so I have a roster of all my students with their email addresses. I think Claude will even create that Gmail for me and upload that. That's my next step.
Yeah, totally. It can use, so there's a native Gmail connector right in
Yeah.
Claude that it can use to draft emails. It can't send it through that connector. It'll just draft it and wait for you to
Sure.
send it.
Yeah.
Most people do prefer that, but there is some workarounds you can do if you want to get Cowork to actually send emails on your behalf, but use with caution.
Yeah, I prefer to review the draft anyway. I think naturally that just feels more comfortable. But
I do
all
tend
that
to
used to
encourage
take
most.
me, it used to take me, Laura, I think to do all that soup to nuts, I think it took me 5 to 6 minutes, waiting for it to upload all this cut, paste, copy, and then go back to Gmail, paste it in. Now, a minute.
Awesome. That's a powerful use case of the admin stuff that just sucks, right? Like you're world class, Eric, at helping PA students pass their exams or high stakes exams. And so like more energy should go towards that, right? Not the downloading, copying, pasting. So that's exactly what this can do to help cut out some of that administrative marginal work that just kind of sucks up that time throughout the week, But it takes intention, right? It takes intention. For you, it was actually pretty dang quick. And that intention was having Claude help you craft the skill and the connection with MCP, but it takes intention to build it. So your leverage here is how do you get super clear? Just like you imagine you're going to hire a new chief of staff or a new, content manager for social media. Just like you would hire a person, you wouldn't just throw them a bunch of information, say have fun. You'd have a position agreement. You'd have your operating manual. You'd have your systems, your SOPs, right? You'd actually have structures and guidance and guardrails and context that's going to teach a person. You want to apply that same principle with your AI tools. And I really found that the more structure, context, guidance, and in this case, guardrails and safety mechanisms, governance you have with a tool like this, just you have a human person, the better the output's going to be for that end result. So.
And just to make one final point, Caleb, what I learned too was as I got ready to see a student this morning, I just set this up last night. And I told Claude I was getting ready to meet this student, and it pulled the summaries from Claude from all of my previous conversations and gave me a bulleted summary of things I might want to address in this upcoming meeting, which kind of just really blew my mind. Eric, you left off on this with the student. She was struggling with this. Hey, why don't you check back in? Why don't you check back in? It was coaching me about how to manage the call pre-call, which I didn't anticipate.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, it is. It's a true tool and true partner, right, in that process. So awesome. Well, let's dive into. We're going to do some screen share and actually show what Claude looks like. I had a few little points for those of you that are new, and feel free to screenshot this if you want. But when you're setting up your Claude account, you're going to be giving instructions to Claude, and really the quality of your instructions is going to impact the quality of your output. There's a few things you can do when you're when you're setting this up is turn off the help improve Claude settings so that your data is not training the model. And Jack, maybe you can jump in and talk more about this in a second. I want to screen share the behind the scenes settings on Claude together. And so defining your global instructions in terms of like who you are, how you operate, and what that means is, this is just a example of, here's who I am, here's the work I do, here's how I work, here's how I think, here's how I like to communicate. I'm going to talk about how to build an actual context library of markdown files, MD files, as part of this call. It goes much deeper than this. But in terms of actually setting for Claude settings, you want to actually give it custom direction and custom context as to who you are, what you do, how you tick, how you work, that kind of stuff. And then for most of you that are starting out, you're going to probably keep computer use turned off initially. We'll talk about towards the end of this call, safety, like the scope of what you can allow Claude to do. But Claude can actually come and control your computer. It can click through. You can click, use the mouse type things. You can access it, so it can surf Chrome and do things on the web for you. So there's a whole spectrum of what you can allow it to do. But anyways, just a few little key points for if you switch to Claude or setting it up that you want to make sure you take into account. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump between computers. Patrick, do you want to jump in and share anything while I'm switching my screen share here?
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the other use cases that Jack has helped me with this, similar to what Eric has done. So over the last year and a half or so, I've had probably over 100 calls with my physician colleagues, and going through, looking at the transcripts, being able to take out useful information, how to compile it, and how to leverage that information that I've been able to get from those calls. So we've integrated with my Notion, which is the kind of what Caleb was referring to as the second brain, and have got an area in there where Cowork or Chat from Claude have created an area on my Notion so that I can see every single call that I've had. It cleans up the entire transcript. It removes any identifying features. It gives me a 3-paragraph summary, and then it actually drafts a potential LinkedIn post based on something that we talked about in that call. So the sky really is the limit with this stuff. It's just putting the time in, which can oftentimes be the limiting factor here. Yeah, so that's just another use case that has been super helpful for me.
That's powerful. No, it's great. It's Jack, do you want to take a second? We're going to dive into settings here, but do you want to take a second and talk about like what is an MCP and how Cowork can interrelate with these different apps through these connectors?
Yeah, happy to. So maybe the easiest thing, I don't know who's controlling this, Caleb. If you just click on that little plus button, we can show connectors.
Yes.
MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, which sounds complicated, but it's not really. Basically, all it does is when you have a tool that you want Claude to be able to use that exists outside of Claude, the AI needs to know how to talk to that tool, what information it expects in, what information it's going to send out. So all MCP does is set up a contract between the two, basically, which defines for the AI exactly what inputs and outputs it should expect to give the tool and receive from it. And then on the tool side, opens up those kind of secure connections so that the information from Claude can flow into the tool and the output from the tool can flow into Claude. So it's really just that communication layer between tools. Claude offers a number of official kind of connectors here listed in their library. A lot of apps have their own kind of officially supported connectors that they just call MCPs, which you can add to Claude outside of this specific list. And then there's also a huge community of amount of community developed MCPs, which you should be a little careful of, because MCPs that are not officially supported by Claude and not officially supported by an app that you know and trust could be malicious. They could try to steal your data, steal credentials. So anything that you're just finding some guy posted on LinkedIn, hey, I created an MCP to do this, always take those with a little grain of salt.
Yes, yeah, that's part of the safety conversation is, this really is experimental technology in that, it's developing and evolving. And when you give AI a tool like this control across searching the web or accessing, accessing your desktop, right? Or accessing different skills that someone else created, or we'll talk about skills in a second, connectors. You're expanding kind of the landscape. Oh, one second, we'll come back to you, Laura. You're expanding kind of the quote kind of attack surface of different ways you're exposed, different code of different people. So that's why safety is part of this conversation today, is just being smart and like not exposing your sensitive information, or really being intentional about what you allow into your ecosystem in terms of sticking with official Claude or skills that you've created or skills from people you know. And we'll talk about that at the end. But Laura, you had a hand up there real quick.
Yeah, I just had a question, and forgive my ignorance, guys. I don't want to slow down the call today, but
That's
so
great.
as an example, if you or Jack can address this, I saw like when you scrolled up to the connectors, let's say you connect to Canva and you want to create, um, so let's say for example, I'm going to be speaking and I want to create a speaker one sheet in Canva, and I'm working on it in Canva, and I think to myself like, oh my gosh, can't AI just help me organize this and make it look on brand and make it look prettier? Is that so? If I connected Canva to Claude, am I working within Canva, or am I in Claude and working within Claude and telling Claude what I want, and then he's going in? I refer to my ChatGPT as Chad. So then he is going in and working within Canva for me. Like I guess I'm just confused about how the integration works. Like, are you working within Claude or within Canva if you connect them?
Yeah. So you would be working within Claude, but then
Okay.
Claude would be talking to Canva. Yeah.
Okay.
I recommend just trying it. Go pop it open and see what you can do.
Okay.
That's honestly the great advice. Is just a lot of these things you're just going to learn by getting in and just doing it yourself. You know, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but one of the best things is ask your AI to teach you, right? Ask it to teach you, hey, how do I get the most out of you? Teach me, how do I actually set this up for my workflow? So I personally prefer the tone, the conversation, the copy output of Claude much more than ChatGPT. I don't know about you guys. I eventually got tired of ChatGPT and how it sounded after a while. Claude, I actually don't mind. Claude's like, hey, I actually don't mind talking to you. This is a little bit of a better back and forth. So there's even a setting where you can speak to it and it'll speak back to you. You can select the voice, or you can just read the outputs back, but you can just have a conversation. Yeah, you don't use ChatGPT at all anymore. Yeah, I'm on the verge of closing mine down, Jack, my ChatGPT. But it's so there's a few. I want to actually kind of show you kind of how this works in a couple use cases here, but especially those of you that are new on this call. But a couple things that just to understand terminology wise. So connectors are those bridges between Claude and other software solutions that are out there. Skills are basically different like prompts that you can essentially you can create, you can train, you can iterate them, you can run them one time, you can schedule them. So it's basically like that. It's like how you do the thing. So if you have a specific way of how you like to write your LinkedIn articles, for example, then you can train a skill in terms of, hey, this is how I want to structure it. This is my guidance for subject lines. Here's how long I want to write them. Say this, don't say that. You basically can build in and I shouldn't say just create it once. You really create it, and just like a person, you train a person, right? It takes hours to train a human. It often could take iterations in time to train your AI, and that's true of your prompts. It's true of your skills. But these become a powerhouse inside of Cowork that really gives you the ability to then refine how you do something and then trigger it on demand. Or you have a series of skills and say, hey, I want you to go ahead, in Eric's use case, I want you to go ahead and pull my transcript from Fathom, and then I want you to run it through this reformatting. I want you to go ahead and give me salient teaching points. Then I want you to go ahead and draft it over here in my Gmail for a follow-up email. That you can have skills that work together and really create a workflow process. So this is where this is a really fun, powerful part of Cowork is the skills refinement process. And so I was going to just do a screen share of an example of a skill in action, or a couple skills in action. But anyone else want to jump in on skills while I'm going over there? Pat, Jack, anyone else?
I want to make one quick note on skills, which I think is something you mentioned. But skills, like you said, define kind of like workflows that you do repeatedly, and they just exist. And Claude will automatically recognize when it needs to use a skill, load it on demand, and then use it. But to create skills, you don't actually have to go in and write those documents. You can just ask Claude, hey, create a skill to do this, and it actually has a skill called the skill creator. So when you ask it to create a skill, it will load a skill to tell it how to create skills, and then it'll create it for you. A little bit meta. But the main idea is just that you don't need to write these yourself. You can just ask Claude to write them and then refine as you use them.
I love that. I'm going to show you guys a skill that I have. This is a new Claude setup I have for me, I decided to have, I had an extra laptop that I basically scrubbed, and I have that like as my Cowork laptop that for me felt comfortable in terms of having my stuff on like one workspace. So this is a new Claude setup I just installed for the sake of the demo. So there's not much in here, but I did create a couple, in this account, I created an example skill of a workflow of how, I have a lot of call transcripts of clients, we all do, or I have my own teaching content, or I just want to just brain dump a topic. So I don't love writing like this, but I like to talk. So, and I can talk faster than I can type, like most of us. So recording a voice memo on my phone gives me just a dump of context that I can then go ahead and drop into a skill or a workflow of skills. And so what I want to showcase here is in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I have a folder I created on my computer that is where I can drop a call transcript, or I can drop in this case, this was a transcript from a course lesson I had in one of my communities. So here's my call transcript, and I can activate my I can basically activate my theme extractor. So I have this theme extractor skill that I've created. It'll let me do it. So I can say, hey, pull out, top themes and use this skill. I'm going to go ahead and I have a Substack article skill to create. I can actually just run the skill. I have to give the context here. Articles and this skill to create note templates. So I basically have several different skills I've made for taking my call transcript, extracting out what might be good content themes per my ideal client, per my business, per my philosophy, all that kind of stuff. And then from there, these skills can go ahead and run, and actually, after I go ahead and identify those themes, actually draft up some Substack articles or CR or some notes. So this is an example of a skill in action. You can even automate this process. I'm just doing this manual for the sake of this call, but you could have it so even when it drops in, it runs. So you can see here, it's looking at the transcript that's in that folder. And so from that transcript, which is talking about like how to make initial sales when you don't have an online presence, it's coming through and it's picking out different themes, different kind of core ideas or themes, and where that might fit. It could be a Substack, could be a LinkedIn, etc. And so I'll just say, okay, theme number 3, like I like theme 3. Actually, let me see what it says at the bottom here. It gave me all these different themes, 7 themes. I like theme, let's say 3 and 7. Run those as articles. So I then have my Substack article skill that can then take those themes that extracted from my call transcript, and it can basically start to draft up those draft Substack articles according to my flow, copy, all that kind of stuff. I haven't refined these themes much yet on this account, so they're not going to sound as much like me, but with refinement, you can basically really get them dialed in. So they do a lot of the heavy lifting, where they can get you some great ideas, outlines, or even write copy. I wouldn't say don't just take copy and paste the AI copy directly, unless you really dial them in. Like, you really still want to make sure you humanize it and it sounds like you. But this can do a lot of the heavy lifting. So right now it's writing a Substack article for me off one of those content themes that's going to show up in a second. And that's just extracting context from a call transcript that I had. So it's incredible what's possible here. Pat, is this kind of similar to what you're doing with your skills? Do you have skills around you said your call transcripts with your
good question. Jack and I just started touching on skills last week, so I don't have a whole lot of useful information to add here, but from what he has shown me, it's just another tool in the tool belt that really can expand what the capability of this is. But we've got a call tomorrow. Hopefully we'll dive into that a little bit more.
Cool. Yeah, we definitely will. One cool thing about skills, so right now we're using these in Cowork. They also work in just regular chat. You can use skills And
That's
Caleb, I
true.
saw you were calling out skills by name with those slash commands, which is awesome. If you want to like make sure it uses a skill correctly, but Claude also can just recognize when a skill is needed and pull it in automatically. Like one example of that I've seen a lot of folks do and like is when creating documents, they want it to be branded, you know, have your logo on it, have your brand colors, use the right fonts. You can just set up a skill to say, whenever you create a document, use this book, right? Like use these fonts, use these colors, add my logo, and then it will just recognize, hey, and you asked me to create a document. Let me go look at the skill, pull in all the right stuff, and then create the document in your branded fashion, which is really easy.
It's amazing. It's changing so fast too. Like it's nuts how quickly it's developing.
Oh yeah, skills were released 7 months ago, by the way, everybody. So
Yeah.
if this is all new to you, don't feel bad.
Yeah. It's so here's an example of so I'm not going to go into specifics. So basically, this was one. Here's 2 different Substack articles that are drafted that follow a specific framework I've given. I've different frameworks I've given my skill in terms of how writing frameworks and whatnot. And it's extracting different ideas that I've had in my call transcripts and actually putting them into a piece of content. I can come in, I can iterate, I could throw some photos in, and I could post it, if I felt like it was aligned. So, there's you can do skills for all kinds of really, it's the sky's the limit for what you can customize skills for. For the sake of today, I'm not going to keep going through this track, but I had created different skills for all different kinds of content, content extraction, LinkedIn, etc., YouTube. But I think what would be fun is I think we should build a skill together. I think that would be a cool process to basically just kind of showcase what this looks like and actually kind of show this in the wild here together. So what I want to go ahead and do is let's go ahead and I'm on my other computer. Let's see if I can get my audio to still pick me up here. Hey there. So I want you to help me with creating a new skill that I can use for creating sales landing pages, either for myself or my clients. And I really want to use the StoryBrand framework. And so go ahead and give me a new skill I can use that's going to basically frame up per StoryBrand the core copy elements, and I can then go ahead and refine with you and then overlay the use case of branding per client. But start with a StoryBrand landing page skill for me. And there is a skill that creates skills. So you can also just, do I even need, I do that, Jack, but do I even need to, or it'll just automatically use that skill for me?
No, it should just automatically use it. Try not using that, and then let's see how it goes.
Let's take this out. All right. Something to think about, guys, is usage. You can really burn through a lot of your tokens faster than maybe we're used to with ChatGPT. So there's different models you can use in terms of, Whisper is great, Whisperflow. There's different models here. There's Sonnet, there's Opus. I've done a lot of app creation and website building. I actually use like Opus for that. But for a lot of the stuff here, we're just using Sonnet, which is kind of a middle of the road. It's not their most robust or most, code building orientated model, but it's more efficient in terms of it's more efficient in terms of this kind of workflow and process. Sure, let's just save this. So basically it's asking me questions. So the clearer we can define what success looks like, the better in terms of the outputs here. So it's asking me, okay, who's this for? What's the output going to be of the website? How much input do you want to have before the skill runs? So basically it's crafting the skill for me based on what context I give it above, what it already knows about me. So it's actually crafting up what it thinks should go into this skill process. Is this helpful, guys? Get to see this in action in a live use case? Go ahead and see a thumbs up. Great. I'm not really seeing the chat with my screen here. So Pat, if something comes up, let me know if I missed something, I should pause. Okay, absolutely fascinating. Here I can see it. Yeah, it is fascinating. It's pretty incredible, Teresa. Okay, so this is doing its thing. It's basically going to give us a StoryBrand skill. It's not going to be probably amazing initially, but that's when you refine it. You come and say, hey, I like this, I don't like that. Bring this into account when you're doing it next time. But it's doing that skill. While it's doing that, I'm just going to pop over to settings real quick because we actually didn't look at that. When you're in settings, you do want to go ahead and give instructions in terms of like a master prompt of who you are, how you operate. And you can just ask, when you set up your Claude account, if you're new, just have Claude interview you. And it'll basically build this just by interviewing you, like who you are, what you do. It gives context around your business, your philosophies. I mentioned earlier too, under privacy, just uncheck this so that they're not using your information to train the model. Your information still is on their servers, so keep that in mind. But Anthropic says they're not going to train their model on your content. And then in here, you've got different. You can basically in the settings, you can basically come in here and you can turn on or off different abilities that it has. I'm not currently using Cowork to have computer access, but something you want to think about just from a risk profile standpoint is it has the power to come and use your computer, but it opens you up to more risk exposure, which we'll talk about at the very end. So as you're entering into Claude, just make sure you don't just jump in and just give it access to everything without fully knowing what it's doing or what the risk exposure is, because it is a different kind of tech where it can run autonomously, it can delete files. There are a lot of safeguards in place, and if you work with approved or like official Anthropic plugins and whatnot, you're way lower risk than just some random MCP or skill off of GitHub. But it is important to make sure you're aware of that from a security standpoint.
I want to jump in really quickly here when it comes to Cowork security. So when you said it has the power to delete files and things, which it does, but there's a really clear mitigation that you have for this, which is when you start a task in Cowork, you have the option of selecting a specific folder to work in. And what that does is when you select a folder that you want to work inside, Cowork can automatically see everything in that folder and all the subfolders. So you give it extra context for the conversation. But B, it won't be able to affect anything outside of that folder. So you're providing a context around what you're working in, which is good. And you are making it a little bit safer because it's not going to be able to reach outside of that folder and affect stuff outside the context you gave it. But that being said, one really effective strategy, again, to mitigate this, that something I just set up with Patrick, I think last week or the week before, you can, if you have Google Drive or OneDrive, you can sync that folder to your computer and then open up Cowork inside that folder on your computer. Now you're working directly within your Google Drive files. Everything is backed up to the cloud. Everything is histories and versions. So if Claude or Cowork does go and delete something, it's all backed up. Great. And you can go restore it, no problem. So a lot of things you can do to mitigate these risks. But like you said, Caleb, they are definitely risks to be aware of. Doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's brutal.
That's a good idea in terms of, like, on this computer I just have a shared folder, between, I create a separate, I have my main user and I have just a user on my Mac just for Claude, and I have a shared folder between them, but it doesn't have any of the benefits of like my G drive. So that's in that case, would you just have a standalone G drive folder or shared drive that's only accessible for that Cowork's what you do? And like, that's like your Claude Cowork G drive folder that's synced to your desktop.
I just hook it up. I hook it up to all of my regular stuff. I don't have a separate account on my computer for Claude. It's not, I don't treat it really as like an open claw kind of setup where it's taking agentic actions. Usually when I'm using Claude, I'm kind of monitoring what it's doing, or I've set up a workflow to run autonomously that I really trust and have validated myself already. Yeah, it just works right in my files.
It's great.
Yeah. Although I may be a little bit more risky. Security is always a balance of, you have to know what the risks are, but then mitigating those risks takes time and effort and money. And security is all just what risks are acceptable to you in your practice, right? If I was working with, I do a lot of medical work, obviously. If I was working with HIPAA compliant data, the kind of risk that I would take and way that I would set up AI is very, very different than working with just like a personal project of mine, for example. So always something to be thinking about.
Completely. This is spinning up, guys, different agents, sub-agents. Basically, it's building out this skill. While it's doing this, let me just pop up real quick another topic that I had on my other computer on the slide, but basically building a context library. And I'll share I'll share a link to this of some guidance on how you can go ahead and build this out. But really building a series of Markdown or MD files that can really give your Claude just context or different aspects of who you are, the kind of work that you do, who's your ideal clients. So I'll give you an idea here. This was a sample file, Markdown file, where it talks about some of my ideal clients that I have, kind of who's my people I tend to work with. So this is example of this is just a file that's easy for Claude to read in Markdown form. It takes less tokens, less usage for it to consume and interpret this kind of data than having like a, I don't know, PDF or something. And so basically building out like a context library is going to really help you get a lot more out of your Claude. So that whether that lives here or lives in a Notion, sorry, you're probably seeing me here, having a whole kind of a living guided context library is going to be something that's going to really make sure you go from generic outputs to actually specific outputs for you. And so I'll see if I can drop it in the chat. But on my other, there was a whole YouTube video I found super helpful from the AI Daily Brief, and the guy has a whole GitHub repo, which basically is there's a whole prompt process you can follow to go ahead and follow how you can build this out, or you can just ask Claude to go ahead and just interview and build out this context library. But that's going to be a tool that's going to really, I'll drop it in here. Here's the link. It's going to basically give you the ability to have living context, because Claude's only going to be as good as the context that you provide it with on the ongoing. So let's see. All right, this is still thinking, still working. So it's taking a little bit of time here to build out this agent. While this is building out, I would love to show this use case. How about we switch and talk real quick about safety, because we've got a few minutes, and then we'll look at this, hopefully this use case before the call wraps. We'll have it. Actually, how close are we? No, it's actually pretty close. Let's talk about the safety real quick. Sound good in terms of governance, guardrails, safety. So like Jack said, there's different degrees of how much you can give it access to. So having, you can have the whole spectrum of just having it on a standalone computer, all the way to like having use of your primary computer and like searching the web, in the wild, so to speak. And there's a kind of a whole range in between. There's a lot of power of having like autonomous action it's taking on your behalf that you're not watching, or there's this term like human in the loop, where you're actually kind of like watching what it's doing. So, your own safety and risk preference is your tolerance is going to be specific to what are you doing, what do you have on your computer. But it's just, as a good rule of thumb, it's wise to not give it access to sensitive client information or your own information. That's just kind of common sense. And Anthropic's pretty good about their documentation, talking through awareness, like, hey, here's some safety protocols, and here's things to think about in that regard. But that's just something that I wouldn't just jump in and just give it access to everything you have, unless you don't know what's in some of those protocols that it has, or without having some silos where there's a little bit of layer, so that if it's going to be working in these files here, we don't give it access to your banking information or your tax information, that kind of stuff. I have a slide about safety on that, but Jack, Pat, you guys want to talk about that all while this is loading up? Anything else you want to add to that conversation?
I'll defer to Jack.
I don't know if I have anything to add right off the bat. Like I said, security is very up to the individual. If you are, I know a lot of medical people here, so I'll reiterate this. If you are working with HIPAA compliant data, don't just toss it into Claude. There are specific ways you can go about to leverage these tools in a HIPAA compliant way. Happy to talk about that another time. But yeah, I mean, just use with caution and be aware of the risks of what it can do. Another way to think about this also is there's kind of tiers with risks. Caleb, right at the beginning, you showed those 3 modes of Claude, we'll call it, where it's chat, Cowork, and then code. Chat is the least risky. it's not going to go in and affect your files. It can't write files or delete files or anything to your computer. It's for having conversations with. And you can upload files to it, and it can generate files that you can then download, but it's self-contained within chat. Cowork, a little bit more risky, right? It can interact with, edit, and delete files on your machine, but like we could discuss, you can scope it to a specific folder. You can back it up to Google Drive. You have a little bit more control over what you do, and it's pretty clear about what it's doing. It's meant to be observed and walks you through the kind of steps of what it's doing. Claude Code is the Wild West. It can do anything. It can wipe your entire machine. It can install malicious software. It can run malicious software. It can export your credentials to some guy in the cloud. And like I said, all this stuff doesn't happen often, but it's a real risk that doesn't exist with these other tools. So Claude Code is really the most risky, but also the most powerful, right? You can build whole apps in minutes with Claude Code if you know what you're doing. It's a risk reward type situation, right? Are you willing to accept the risks of these more powerful tools to leverage how powerful they are? Maybe. And then you can mitigate those risks by knowing, best practices and things like that, which I don't know if we have time to get into today, but that's all. That's a whole talk for another time.
Totally. I'm going to, if you guys want to screen share, there's a few just kind of rule of thumbs you can screen share if you want, in terms of like levels. This is just the Gemini summary of it. This is not authoritative, but it's just kind of based on documentation. But there's kind of low risk in terms of only local static to your computer or official plugins and whatnot. You can see, why don't you screenshot that? And then there is, and you if you guys want access to information after the call too, you can shoot me an email. I'll make sure you have my email in the chat, and I can send you any notes or any of this stuff after the call too. Medium risk, where you've got kind of human in the loop, and you're maybe letting it use Chrome, but you know what it's doing, you're watching it, and then having it ask you before it takes actions, which could get annoying if it has to keep asking to do things, but it's a way to kind of give it permission to what's it wanting to do. Then kind of the high risk could be, okay, it's just going to be automatically bringing in skills, and it's kind of not asking for approval and kind of going full steam ahead. So, okay, I think my other computer, I think it finished up creating that skill. Thank you guys for your patience on that. And let's see if I can jump over there and show that to you guys real quick. Sound good? And then we'll wrap with any final questions. All right. Okay. All right. Can you guys see? Are we back in Claude here? All right. Looks like we are. Good. Okay. So guys, here is, let's see what we did. So we went ahead and asked it to create a skill for creating a story brand landing page skill. Let's see here. The eval reviewer is ready. Okay, evaluate the skill without skill mixed. Let's see. Did it actually produce our skill? So Claude will sometimes go ahead and it'll pop up and kind of show you an HTML format. Okay, this is probably gonna be on the scope of today's call. I realized I actually had asked it to ask me for feedback when building this out, which probably be on this time. But essentially, I could go through this process, and Claude's gonna ask me a series of questions. It's gonna go ahead and iterate and refine this skill, and then we can basically deploy it. We can say, hey, I want a story brand style landing page website for, I don't know, a roofing company I have in Texas somewhere, and it'll actually spin up copy or spin up the outline. So that's an example of, we didn't quite get full steam on the deployment of it, but basically, what do you want to do? What do you want to optimize in your business? Where's their admin or headache? Where do you have a problem or friction in your business that you can then look to build a skill, build an automation, build the context it needs to then have that hopefully become automated out as you refine it, you improve it, you use it, or it speeds you up. If creating Canva documentation Canva assets takes forever, Laura, then connecting it with your Canva, or there's even Claude Design. There's a new design mechanism in Claude we didn't talk about today for creating design assets. So it's super powerful. Hope you guys can see that today. And really the kind of key takeaways are just figure out what you're comfortable with from a safety standpoint, really giving it personal context that's relevant to you for better outputs. Treat it like it's a team member, like it's an employee, not just a chat bot. And then I would say just use a simple hack is just use the voice dictation. Often we can give so much more context when we're talking than we do typing. But I found this happens to me when I'm building apps and Lovable, is the more I can give context and talk through it, the better the AI can kind of latch on to what exactly is going on. What's the nuance? And then another hack is complain. Like, man, like if I'm Eric, like I'm so tired of downloading these Fathom files and uploading, and I'm so tired of downloading ChatGPT or whatever. Complain to it. Say, here's my problem. Here's the pain in my life. Can you help me figure out, what's the solution for that? And that can be done over in chat. You don't have to do that. You can do it Cowork or chat, but basically like using it as a partner where you tell it your pain, give it context, and then have it help you formulate and create that game plan to solve it on the long term. So those are kind of my takeaways. Just diving in, using it, and playing with it is really where the magic happens. So cool, guys. Has this been helpful for some of you that have getting exposed to Claude for the first time?
Very much so.
Awesome.
Can I ask a dumb question?
No dumb questions. All questions are open.
So, Caleb, I've heard you mention several times something about tokens or credits within Claude. I've only used ChatGPT, and to the best of my knowledge, either it doesn't have any limits or I've never bumped up against it. Can you give some kind of context as to what is your monthly, if you're on the monthly payment plan in Claude, what does that give you? What does that allow you to do?
Yeah, there's a couple layers to that. So it's like $20 a month for the pro plan, and there's been a ton of demand for Claude. It's just exploded in the last handful of months. So they've had challenges. They're now bumping up their limits, but they've had challenges to meet that demand with their tokens. So I don't know I don't forget the exact quantity of tokens, but basically it resets. I think it's every 5 hours. I think it resets. Like if you hit up against it, there's kind of a time clock where it allows you to go again. If you're building apps in Claude Code on the pro plan, you'll probably hit that pretty quick. If you're using like the Opus 4.7, using a more advanced plan with adaptive thinking or whatnot. So you can dictate how robust of a model you want to use to do the activity. You will bump up against that. Cowork, you could bump up against your 5 hour limit, depending on what you're doing, what you're building. I was playing around with it, this account the other day, and I upgraded to the max plan, which is $100 a month, because I wanted to build a bunch of stuff out in one shot. And so that is a challenge of Claude, is depending on what you're doing, you might hit those limits where you're not used to hitting those limits in ChatGPT. And so regulating, there's things you can do, like you can make a thread go compact or clear it. You can hand off to a new thread. You can use different models for different things. Like Sonnet's not as high of a usage, but that could be one of the downsides is a little more expense or token burn. Jack, do you have any insights on that you want to share?
Yeah, just to break it down a little bit more, I think that was a great explanation. Just to break it down a little more, a token is basically a word. That's the way you can think about it. Is a token is a word that the AI processes. So when you type up a paragraph, if the paragraph has 100 words, you can consider that roughly to be 100 tokens. It is more complicated than that, but that is a good way to think about it for the everyday use case. So the way that you get charged, all of the model providers do this the same way. They charge you based on tokens. So for the number of tokens that you put into it, they charge you a certain amount. And then for the number of tokens it generates, they charge you a certain amount. And then the way that it works with these subscriptions is they give you an amount of built-in usage, right? They say, you can use this number of tokens within this amount of time, or have this amount of spend within this amount of time. So Claude, the way they do it is 5 hour limits that reset, which is a smaller limit. And then they have another weekly limit that resets every week. And these limits are purposefully opaque. They make them hard to understand on purpose to have people spend more. It's business. So a couple pieces of advice here on managing token usage. Don't get the free plan. People want to start with the free plan. Don't do it. You're getting, without going into too much detail, you're getting worse models. You're not able to protect your data. Just skip the free plan. Go right to the $20 a month, which is their cheapest paid plan. And you're going to get plenty of usage to do stuff. Remember how I talked a minute ago about kind of these tools getting more powerful? Chat is the most contained and can do the least. Cowork does more, is a bit more powerful, and then code is the most powerful. That scale of how powerful it is also means it uses more tokens. It is more powerful by nature of using more tokens. It does stuff more autonomously. It takes actions on its own, which is more expensive. So if you want to be cheaper, you're doing something simple, right? Don't do it in Cowork. Do it in chat. That can save you some money. And then if you're bumping up your limit, maybe only once or twice you hit hey, you have to come back in a couple hours after your limit resets. Okay, that's not that big a deal. If you're running into that every time you use chat, or you're getting that message after you've only been using it for 20, 30 minutes, upgrade, but get the higher plan. Go for the $100 a month. For me, I've never met a single person who has upgraded from the $20 a month to the $100 a month who has regretted it. But don't do it until you need it, right? Start with the lower plan. If you find yourself running out, spend more. They also have an option which you can pay extra for extra usage, where you can just say, okay, well, I only have like one question left. Let me just ask that one question, pay them like an extra, dollar or something. So they have that option as well. But if you're doing that all the time, it's probably best to just upgrade the plan.
For sure.
Thank you.
Well worth what you pay, whichever plan you're on.
I've never met anybody who has been like, wow, I really regret spending that extra $80 on Claude every month. It's just, it's never happened.
It's kind of a buzzkill when you're working on something, and on the $20 plan, you have to stop and you're like, geez. And, if you just kind of the framework and the mindset you have, it's like, wow, for an extra $80, this is going to save me 10 hours this month. Your time is worth more than $10 an hour. And just think about the potential.
I ran the math a few months ago and figured out that using these AI tools was giving me, not just Claude, but a couple other ones that I use, basically 10xing my efficiency and how much I was able to produce, which is about an extra 1,500 to 1,800 hours a month, like almost 2,000 hours a month. And I looked at what I was spending, it was like $500 a month. And so, the numbers there, it worked out to like 10 cents an hour for the of my time, which my time is definitely worth more than 10 cents an hour. It's really a no-brainer when you look at like how much you're able to do with some of this stuff versus how much you're paying. Although it does seem like a lot, a software subscription that is $100, $200 a month, that's not normal. But these tools aren't just your regular tools.
They're not normal either.
Yeah. So I get people's hesitation, but I've never seen anybody who's been upset with their spend, really.
And they're only getting better, right? These tools are only getting better
constantly
every month.
And I'm going to throw out an unsolicited endorsement of both gentlemen who are leading this discussion today, both Caleb and Jack. I've worked with both of them. They're not paying me to say this. But sometimes, the YouTube videos, the webinars, these are all fantastic. But when you have an expert like Jack or Caleb sitting right next to you on a Zoom screen and they're walking you through this, it's exponential. So I would encourage you, and I put both of their contact information inside the chat for their LinkedIn profiles. But working with both of them has really just transformed what I'm doing, how I'm approaching a lot of this stuff. For me, 50-year-old dude whose brain doesn't get wrapped around this stuff very well. It's nice to have somebody who's patient, kind, and is able to walk me through this stuff. Worth your time having a call with both of them.
Thank you. We're both in the ShiftChange community. So
Yes.
Find us in the ShiftChange community. And if you're on this call and you haven't joined yet, that's the place to be. You got to join the ShiftChange community. Did you drop the link, Pat?
I am. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And if anybody is interested and you're curious about what ShiftChange is, reach out to me. I'd love to have a call with you. Can answer any questions, do a Zoom screen share and kind of walk you through this stuff. I just put up a 7-day trial. It's $47 a month. and it gets you access to people like Jack, like Caleb, like Ed Orlandi, who is an Excel spreadsheet just master. So there are clinical entrepreneurs, emergency medicine, urgent care, dermatology. There is a cardiologist in there, I believe. So we've got a wide array of people, but we've also got subject matter experts who can help you every step of the way. And if you need a subject matter expert who's not in there, tell me and I will find them and we'll get them inside of the community. So, really, just trying to reduce the friction of early stage entrepreneurial work so that you've got all the resources at your fingertips. And we just put up the 7-day trial if you want to try it out.
So, thank you, Pat, for putting this together.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I really, really appreciate it.